The mother no one wanted on the dusty streets of Zarian 4, an alien planet ruled by rules, power, and cold-hearted systems. One tired woman kept walking. Her name was Riala. She wasn't rich. She wasn't respected. And worst of all, she was a single mother from a species nobody trusted. She held the hand of her quiet, shy daughter. The little girl hadn't spoken in weeks. Her name was Vea. She was only 6 cycles old. "Please," Riala said softly, standing at the entrance of another workshop. "I can clean, fix tools, grow plants, anything you need. Just give me a chance." The tall insectoid alien behind the glass didn't even look at her. "No jobs. Go back to your hive," he muttered, flicking a switch to shut the door. Riala closed her eyes and tried not to cry. She bent down to her daughter and whispered, "It's okay, Vea. We'll try the next one." But deep inside, her hope was fading. No one wanted her. Not since the war. Her people, the Serene, had been accused of supporting a rebel faction during the last galactic war. Even though Riala had nothing to do with it, everyone looked at her with hate. To them, she was a traitor, a criminal, a curse. She moved to the next building. A metal repair shop with oil-stained floors and strange sparks flying from inside. A group of strong aliens were fixing machines. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I just need work," she said. "Anything you need, please." A thick, 4-armed alien turned to her, spat oil near her feet and grunted, "Get lost. You Serene are all the same. Lazy. Dishonest. You'll steal my tools the first night." Riala didn't argue. She just bowed her head and backed away slowly. Her daughter looked up at her with wide, sad eyes. They sat on a bench made of rusted metal. Vea was hungry. Riala hadn't eaten in 2 days just so her child could have half a ration bar. Riala looked up at the orange sky. Her body ached. Her feet were swollen. But giving up was not an option. Suddenly, a deep voice called out, from behind them, "Hey, you looking for work?" Riala turned around fast. Standing in the doorway of a small shop was someone different. A human. He was tall, strong-looking, with oil stains on his gloves and a calm face. His brown eyes didn't show hate, just curiosity. "My name's Jake Holden," he said, wiping his hands on a towel. "I run this place alone, could use some help." Riala stood slowly. She couldn't believe what she heard. "You would hire me?" she asked carefully. Jake raised an eyebrow. "You've got hands, don't you? Can you hold a wrench? Can fix solar panels, engines, micropumps, clean filters?" Jake smiled. "Good enough. Come inside." Riala hesitated. No one had offered her a chance in so long. It felt like a trap, but then her daughter tugged her hand. They followed him inside. Jake's workshop was small but full of life. Half-broken machines were lying everywhere. Tools, panels, lights. "I'm not rich," Jake said, "but I pay fair and I feed whoever works under my roof." He handed her a toolkit. "Fix that power coil over there. Let's see what you got." Riala kneeled down. Her hands were shaking. But once she started working, everything felt natural again. Tools were like old friends. Sparks flew, and in just 5 minutes the coil hummed back to life. Jake clapped his hands. "Not bad at all." Vea looked around nervously. She touched one of the soft light globes on the wall, her eyes wide. Jake offered her a small snack bar. "Hungry?" Vea took it gently, her eyes watching him like he might vanish. Outside the workshop, a few aliens were staring through the window. One of them pulled out a communicator and whispered, "You see that? The human just hired a Serene woman, with a child. He's out of his mind." Inside, Riala wiped her hands. Why would you give me a chance?" she asked softly. "Don't. You know what I am?" Jake looked at her, serious now. "I know what people say you are," he said, "but I also know a good mechanic when I see one. And I don't care what species you are, I care what you do." Riala couldn't speak. Her throat tightened. No one had said anything kind to her in years. Her daughter leaned into her side and whispered something. Riala gasped. She looked up at Jake and said, shocked, She just spoke. She said, "Thank you." Jake looked at the little girl and smiled warmly. Good. That's a strong start. The humans offer. The next morning on Zarion 4 began like any other, dusty winds blowing across cracked metal roads, skyships roaring above, and alien traders shouting in sharp voices. But inside the tiny repair shop on the corner of Sector 7, something rare was happening. A human and a serene single mother were working side by side. Jake Holden watched carefully as Riala tightened a fusion bolt with smooth precision. Her long fingers moved like she had been building machines all her life. Beside her, little Vea quietly sorted small tools into boxes, humming softly under her breath. It was the first time Jake had ever heard that sound in his shop. Not a machine, not a fan, but a child's hum, warm, soft, alive. Jake sipped his bitter coffee and said, "You sure you've never done human tech before?" Riala looked up. "Not this model, but machines all speak the same language. You just have to listen." Jake chuckled. "That's the smartest thing I've heard all week." Riala smiled faintly, but there was still worry behind her eyes. She wiped her hands and looked down. "You know this won't last, right? The others will come. You'll lose customers. You'll lose licenses. Maybe worse." Jake leaned against the wall and folded his arms. "I don't run this place to please bigots. I run it to get things fixed. And you? You fix things." Before she could answer, the door burst open. A furry red alien stomped in with smoke pouring from a metal box. "My purifier's on fire," he yelled. "I need it by tomorrow or my whole harvest will rot." Jake pointed at Riala without hesitation. "She'll fix it." The alien blinked. "Her? She's a serene." Jake stepped forward. Calm voice, firm tone. "She's better than you think, and faster than me. Want help or want to leave?" The alien grumbled but handed over the box. "Fine, but if she breaks it worse, I'll sew your ears off." Riala took the machine, opened the casing, and started working like it was just another puzzle. Within minutes, the fire was gone. The gears realigned, the smell faded. "Done," she said. The alien tested the device and it purred perfectly. He looked stunned. "Well, maybe she's not useless after all," Jake grinned. "Told you." The alien left, confused but silent. Later that night, Jake sat outside on a crate watching the stars blink above the rooftops. Riala joined him holding 2 cups of warm juice. She offered him one. "You're not like other humans," she said softly. Jake took the cup. "I've been told that. Usually right before getting punched." She chuckled quietly. He asked, "So, what happened to your husband?" Riala stared at the stars. For a long time, she said nothing. Then finally, she spoke. "He died trying to save us. When the war started, my government forced soldiers into every town. My husband refused to fight. They said he was a traitor. They executed him. In front of me. In front of Vea." Jake didn't interrupt. "We ran, hid in cargo ships, slept in train stations. She hasn't spoken much since that day." Jake nodded slowly. "And still, you keep going." She looked down at her hands. "Mothers don't have the choice to stop." A few moments passed in silence. Then Jake turned to her and said, "Riala, I want to offer you a proper position here, not just a helper. I want you as lead technician, full pay, full hours, your own nameplate on the wall." Her eyes widened. "You trust me that much?" Jake grinned. "No, I trust you more than that." She blinked fast, trying not to cry. "Then, I accept." They shook hands. Vea peeked from the window inside the shop and smiled. For the first time, her mother looked proud. But across the street, hidden in a dark alley, a camera lens blinked red. A small drone hovered silently, recording everything. Voice on the other side of the transmission said, "The humans protecting her. Begin city-level warning. Prepare official complaint to remove his license." The gears of politics had started turning. The next day, a letter arrived at Jake's shop. It read, "You are hereby warned. Employing a known serene citizen with no clearance violates the Alien Rehabilitation Act. Failure to comply will result in fines, license removal, and possible deportation. Zarian Council Office." Jake read it once, then again, then calmly lit it on fire and tossed it into the trash. Riala saw him do it. "You're going to lose everything," she said. Jake turned and smiled. "I already lost a war, lost my planet, lost friends, but this I'll fight for." Riala looked down, hands trembling. "I don't know how to repay you," she whispered. Jake just looked her in the eyes and said, "Don't repay me. Just stay and keep fixing things." Trouble in the market had started with a simple shopping trip. Nothing special, just another dusty morning on Zarion 4. The market was noisy with alien vendors shouting in a dozen different languages. The sky above glowed red from the twin suns, and a gust of wind carried the smell of fried crystals and engine oil. But this day would change everything. Jake, Riala, and little Via had come to buy replacement coils and cooling gel packs for the repair shop. Jake pushed the hover cart while Riala scanned parts with a worn scanner. Vea walked quietly, holding her mother's hand, a soft scarf wrapped around her head. To them, it was just a normal errand. To the rest of the marketplace, it was a scandal, in motion. "Look over there," hissed a merchant. "That's the Serene woman. She brought her child here? And with a human. What's next? Marrying her?" The voices swirled like smoke, bitter and ugly. But Jake didn't stop walking. He saw the stares, heard the whispers, and he didn't care. Riala did. Her shoulders tightened. Her grip on Vea's hand became firm, but she didn't run. "I'm used to it," she whispered. "No," Jake replied. "You shouldn't be." They stopped at a tech stall run by a long-snouted alien with yellow eyes. As Riala inspected the coils, Vea saw something shiny on him. Nearby shelf, glowberries. The little girl stepped away for just a second. That's when it happened. A tall alien woman in a royal cloak stepped right in front of her, then accidentally backed into her, shoving the child down to the ground. Vea fell hard. Her small hand scraped against the metal walkway. The alien woman looked down and smirked. "Oh dear. Didn't see her there." Riala's heart snapped. In a blur, she was beside her daughter. Her hands glowed, shimmering with raw, serene energy. The heat cracked the ground under her feet. The crowd gasped. Some pulled out recorders. A few backed away. Riala's breath came fast. Her eyes blazed. Her fists were clenched. She was 1 second away from striking back. But then, a hand touched her shoulder. "Jake." His voice was calm, steady. "Look at Vea. Not her. Look at your daughter." Riala turned. Vea wasn't crying. She was reaching for her mother, quiet, brave, and still whole. The glowing light in Riala's hands faded. She bent down, hugged her daughter tight, and whispered, "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." Jake turned to the alien woman. "We'll be going now. Before I say something that makes this worse." But she sneered. "You humans are fools. This creature will drag you into fire." Jake didn't flinch. "If so, I'll drag her out." They walked away as the crowd parted, silent and watching. Behind them, the cameras were still recording, and one person in that crowd uploaded the clip to the galactic net. That night, the clip went viral. "Serene woman nearly attacks noble. Dangerous single mother roams Zarion 4 with human. Human, soldier shields enemy of the state." News channels twisted the story. Alien politicians used it to push anti-Serene laws. And worst of all, the council issued a summons. Jake was called to appear for questioning. In the quiet of his shop, Jake sat sharpening a broken circuit blade. Sparks flew, but his mind was far away. Riala stood nearby, her daughter asleep in her arms. "You should fire me," she whispered, "before they make you lose everything." Jake looked up slowly. "I'm not afraid of them." "You should be," she replied. "They don't fight fair." He stood and walked over to her. "You're right, they don't. But I fought in 2 wars. I've bled for people who didn't even like me. I'm not backing down for a bunch of bullies in robes." She looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't seen in years. Pure loyalty. He added, "Tomorrow we'll go back to the market, together, with your head held high." Riala said nothing, but that night while Vea slept, she quietly stitched a small patch onto Jake's jacket, a patch with her old family crest, torn from her past, but now offered to a man who had earned her trust. The warning letter. The envelope wasn't delivered by hand. It didn't arrive with a knock or a polite message. It floated into Jake's workshop at dawn, dropped from a drone, marked in glowing red ink, sealed with the council's black sigil. Jake didn't need to open it to know what it was, but he opened it anyway. Riala stood nearby, fixing a broken converter. When she saw Jake's face go hard, she slowly put down her tool. He read the words aloud. "You are ordered to cease employment of Riala Serene, citizen of a banned species. Further defiance will result in shop closure, property seizure, and removal from Zarian 4. Vea stood in the corner, hugging a blanket. She didn't understand all the words, but she understood the fear in the air. Jake didn't say anything at first. He stared at the letter, then crumpled it in one hand. Then he did something no one expected. He walked over to the furnace, opened the door, and tossed the paper inside. The flames ate the warning without hesitation. "You should have run," Riala whispered. Jake didn't answer. "You could have fired me, told them I lied to you, saved your shop, your freedom." Jake looked at her. "I told you before," he said. "I don't care what they say, I care what I see. And I see someone brave enough to keep going when everyone else told her to disappear." Riala turned away. Her fingers trembled. "I didn't choose to be brave," she said. "I chose to survive." Jake nodded. "Same thing, really." That evening, something unexpected happened. A customer walked in. A tall, armored alien. A former soldier, scars on his face. One eye cybernetic. He dropped a broken plasma torch on the counter. "I heard the Serene girl fixed that purifier last week," he said. "Mine's worse. Think she can handle it?" Jake nodded toward Riala, who stepped forward. "I'll need an hour." "Fine," the soldier grunted. "I'll wait." While she worked, Jake handed him a drink. "Not afraid of her?" The soldier chuckled. "I've fought beside humans. Fear isn't your thing. Figured anyone you trust can't be that bad." Jake smiled. Some people are finally getting it, but not everyone was. That same night, as the shop lights dimmed and they prepared for sleep, Jake stepped outside to check the security feed. He froze. The walls were marked. Someone had sprayed black, paint across the outer wall. "Get the traitor out. Humans don't belong with them." Blood calls to blood. Riala came out, saw the words, and stopped. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply sat on the step and lowered her head. Jake grabbed a bucket and started scrubbing. She said quietly, "You can't wash hate away." Jake kept scrubbing. "No, but I can make sure it doesn't stay on my walls." Inside the shop, Vea sat up from her cot, rubbing her eyes. She walked over to the toolbox and pulled out a small, unused repair patch. She placed it gently on the window beside the front door. Then she used colored wire to shape a simple message. When Riala came inside and saw it, her heart skipped. It said, "We fix everything, even broken families." Jake read it too and smiled. That girl's gonna grow up to run this shop better than either of us. The next morning, a message arrived. On Jake's holopad, it was short. Council review hearing 3 days, bring Serene worker. Bring defense statement. Riala stared at it. "They're giving you a last chance," she said. "To betray me in person." Jake shrugged. "Guess we better wear something nice then." But far across the city, inside a tall glass building, Councilman Rezik of the Alien Oversight Division stared at their footage in silence. He zoomed in on the girl's face. The child. The one who hadn't spoken for months, now smiling, walking, touching things with curiosity. Rezik narrowed his eyes. That child, he said, has the markings of the old Serene bloodline, the one that accessed forbidden tech. An assistant beside him spoke. Should we block them from attending the hearing? Rezik shook his head. No, let them come. Let the crowd see the human defend the enemy. Let them dig their own grave. He turned off the screen. This ends in flames. The protest begins. The shouting started before sunrise. Not a war siren, not a fire alert. Voices, hundreds of them. Jake opened the workshop door and froze. The street outside was filled with aliens. Not customers, not passers-by. Protesters. They held glowing signs that said, "Human traitor. Kick out the Serene, protect our planet. No half-breeds allowed." Some even held old war banners. Some wore masks. Others screamed through voice amplifiers. Jake stepped outside and looked around, jaw clenched. Riala joined him, her daughter held close against her chest. Via whimpered and hid her face. Jake didn't say anything yet. He just looked up at the sky, quiet, calm. Then he stepped forward onto the steps. A purple-skinned alien with sharp teeth came forward. "You've had your warning, human. You keep her here, you're spitting on everyone who died in the war." Jake didn't flinch. "I served in that war." The crowd paused. He took a deep breath. "I watched friends die, watched cities burn, and I know what hate looks like. I see it in all of you right now." Someone threw a rock. It hit the doorframe beside him. Via cried out. Riala pulled her back inside. Jake didn't move. He looked at the rock, then back at the crowd. "You want to throw things?" he said, voice rising. "Throw them at me. I hired her. I chose her, because she was honest, because she worked hard, because she saved my business." Another voice yelled. "She's Serene. She's cursed." Jake's voice turned to iron. "Then curse me too." The crowd went quiet. Even the wind seemed to stop for a moment. Jake stepped down the stairs and faced the aliens. "You call her dangerous? You're the ones who gathered in the dark, hiding behind signs and noise. She walks these streets every day, feeding her child, fixing machines, earning trust." He pointed to a floating news drone recording everything. "I hope you're watching. I want the whole galaxy to see this. A mother and her child chased by cowards while one human stood beside them." Inside the workshop, Riala was shaking, not from fear but from something else. She watched Jake out the window, watched him stand alone. Via tugged her sleeve. "Mama, is he going to get hurt?" Riala kneeled and held her child close. "No, baby," she said softly. "Because I'm not letting him face this alone." Riala stepped out into the open, holding Vea's hand. The crowd gasped. "Go back inside," someone yelled. "Don't make this worse." But Riala didn't stop. She walked to Jake's side and said clearly, "If you hate me, fine. But look at my daughter." She lifted Vea up so they could all see her face. "She was born after your war. She never held a weapon, never made a choice. All she wants is to play, to eat, to learn. Is she your enemy too?" Silence. She continued, "I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm not asking for pity. I'm just asking for a chance to breathe." A single voice spoke from the crowd. "She speaks like we're the villains." It was a female alien, older, dressed in merchant robes. She stepped forward and stared at Riala, then looked down at Vea. "My sister died in that war," the merchant said. "But she died helping a Serene family escape. Not all of them were enemies." Then she turned to the crowd. "We came to scream. Maybe we should listen instead." The tension cracked. A few in the crowd lowered their signs. Some looked away in shame, others just backed off, not all, but enough. The rest, seeing they were losing control of the moment, started leaving. Back inside the workshop, hours later, Jake, Riala and Vea sat in silence. Vea drank warm tea. Jake rubbed his sore shoulder. Someone had managed to push him. During the chaos, Riala placed her hand on his arm. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "I did," he said, "because I knew no one else would." She smiled sadly. "You may lose everything." Jake smirked. "But I gained something better." Across the stars, the protest footage exploded on the galactic net. But this time, the story changed. Human protects alien mother and child, calls out fear with courage. Crowd protests, but one brave human changes minds. Hope on Zarion 4, the mechanic who stood up for peace. In a cold, white office, Councilman Rezik watched the video with narrowed eyes. He turned to his assistant and said coldly, "If public sympathy grows, we'll have to act quickly. We need a reason to shut that shop down before the hearing." He pulled up a new file. A plan began forming. The child's gift it began with a power outage. 1 second, Jake's workshop was full, of humming machines and glowing lights. The next, everything died. No lights, no screens, no power. Outside, the street lamps flickered out. Across the sector, buildings turned dark. People shouted in confusion. Jake tapped a dead console and sighed. "That's not normal." Riala looked around, alert. "It's not just your shop. The whole block is down." Vea sat on the floor beside a half-fixed power core. She tilted her head, not scared, just curious. The little girl placed her hand gently on the cold machine. Suddenly, the machine blinked, then hummed to life. Jake blinked. "Wait, what?" Riala stared. That's not possible." Jake stepped forward. "That thing's disconnected. It's not even linked to the main grid." The lights in the workshop came back on, but only inside the shop. Outside, everything was still dark. Then Vea stood up. She walked slowly to the next console. Touched it. It lit up too. Riala covered her mouth. "Jake, this isn't random." Jake crouched next to Vea. "Sweetheart, what are you doing?" The little girl didn't speak. She only smiled, softly glowing lines appearing faintly along her fingers. Her skin shimmered for just a moment, like it was speaking to the machines. Then she said very clearly, "The machines. Like me." Jake's heart skipped. That's not just liking. That's responding. They ran a few quiet tests. Vea touched different tech, from broken scanners to old alien panels. Everything came to life. Even devices Jake had never seen work before. Things too old, too broken, too alien. One device buzzed and projected an ancient star map that hadn't been seen in hundreds of years. Jake turned to Riala slowly. "Your daughter is something special." Riala looked stunned. "My husband used to say, our bloodline was old, that we had gifts, but I never believed it." Jake whispered, "You should believe it now." That night, while Vea slept, Riala sat at the workbench, her hands shaking. Jake joined her, silent. "I don't know what to do," she said. Jake said, "We don't have to do anything. She's just a child. We protect her." Riala looked at him. "You don't understand. The Serene once guarded ancient tech, the kind that even the Council feared. That's why they hunted us. If they find out Vea can activate it..." Jake finished the sentence for her. "They'll take her." What they didn't know was that someone had already found out. Far across the city, in a private lab, Councilman Rezik watched the security feed from Jake's shop. A hidden cam, planted in the drone that had delivered the warning letter, had captured everything. Rezik leaned forward, pausing on the moment Vea lit up the ancient map. "That child, she's more than a threat," he said. "She's a weapon." His assistant frowned. "What do we do?" Rezik smiled coldly. "We don't wait for the hearing anymore." He tapped his desk. "Prepare a retrieval team. Discreet, quiet. Tonight." Back at the shop, Vea suddenly sat up in bed. She looked toward the window. Her small hands shook. "Mama," she whispered. "The sky feels angry." Outside, far above, a council craft hovered silently, cloaked, waiting. A new future begins. The night air was too still, not peaceful, silent, like a breath being held. Inside Jake's workshop, all the lights were off, not from a power cut, but by choice. Jake had turned everything off. He stood at the window, holding an old plasma rifle. Riala stood behind him, her body tense. Vea sat quietly, hugging a blanket, her big eyes staring at the door. They all felt it. Something was coming. "They'll try to take her," Riala said, voice low. "They'll say it's for testing, for protection, but they'll never let her go." Jake nodded. "Then we make sure they never touch her." Suddenly, a sharp clicking noise echoed from the back alley. Jake moved fast, out the back door, through the shadows, weapon ready. But he didn't fire, because what he found was unexpected. 3 aliens stood there. Not council soldiers, citizens, the merchant woman from the protest, the ex-soldier customer, and a teenage engineer Jake had once hired years ago. "We saw the videos," said the merchant softly. "We saw what the girl can do." Jake raised his weapon slowly. "If you're here to sell her out, we're here to help." The soldier stepped forward. "The council is sending a black ops team, unmarked ship, no trial, no records. They'll take the girl and erase everything." Jake narrowed his eyes. "How do you know?" the engineer whispered. "Because I used to work on those ships." Back inside, Riala packed a bag with shaking hands. "We need to run." But Thea stood by the glowing tool rack and shook her head. "No," she said. "We stay." Riala blinked. "What?" Vea stepped forward and touched the wall. Her fingertips glowed faintly, and then the entire workshop lit up. Not with regular power, but with something ancient, alien, tech that should have been long dead now pulsed to life, guided by her hands. Panels opened. Barriers slid down over the windows. Small drones rose from under the floor like sleeping guardians. The shop had awakened. "She's activating the old defense system," the young engineer whispered. "Your building is sitting on top of forgotten tech. She's the key." Outside, the council craft uncloaked, dark, silent, cold. Ropes dropped. Shadow soldiers landed with no sound, faces hidden, weapons ready. They moved toward the door. One touched the handle. The workshop door shocked him backward with a flash of light. Another soldier tried to blast a window open, only to be knocked out by a drone from above. From inside, Jake watched the chaos. "Well, she just weaponized my building." Riala stared at her daughter, wide-eyed. "How do you know what to do?" Vea looked up and said softly, "The machines are telling me, and they're angry." The council team tried one last time, cutting through the roof. That's when the glowing sphere in the ceiling lit up. A bright pulse exploded outward, not violent but powerful. Blinding white light covered the entire street, and when it faded, the council ship was gone. Just gone. Not destroyed, not broken. Simply vanished, as if space itself had swallowed it whole. Everyone outside stood frozen. Even the merchants, in nearby buildings, peeked out, confused and amazed. Hours later, when the Galactic Council arrived publicly, it was too late. Hundreds of citizens had gathered around Jake's shop, forming a peaceful circle. They stood between the shop and the next set of enforcers. The people who had once whispered and judged were now protecting. The council tried to question Jake. He only gave them one answer. "You sent men in the night for a child. She sent your ship somewhere you can't follow. Now leave us alone." News of the event spread like fire. Child stops council raid with unknown technology. Zarian 4 citizens rise to protect Serene Mother and human ally. Workshop becomes center of interspecies unity. Riala was invited to speak at the planetary forum. She refused. Instead, she spoke from her small workbench. Live, simple, honest. "My daughter is not a weapon. She is not a threat. She is a child who fixed broken things, including hearts." Months passed. Vea grew stronger, happier. She spoke more. She laughed. Jake's shop became more than just a business. It became a safe zone, a school, a symbol. Aliens from different races came to learn, to work, to heal. Riala was given legal status, full citizenship, and more job offers than she could count. She accepted none. She chose to stay in the workshop with the human who believed in her. One night, as stars blinked above, Via sat on the roof beside Jake. "Do you think the machines love me?" she asked. Jake smiled and ruffled her hair. "I think the machines follow the same rule I do." "What's that?" He looked up at the stars. "They follow anyone brave enough to fix what others tried to destroy."